Yeah, it's Alan Bevan, thinking about the SFU situation. You've got a large organization around you with the Robert Malcolm Memorial System. You faced with the same kind of challenges or concerns with numbers and people staying interested?
Um, well, I think Chris was kind of speaking globally. I think there's probably a difference in the kind of grade one band experience where a lot of people are kind of knocking on the door to get in the top bands. And there's a hunger, and there's generally the bands are pretty young as well. Um, but as Alan was saying too, I think you're probably going to see more people sort of towards the end of their careers or who are close to that point, maybe making an early retirement than they would have, and also because it's a hell of a lot more work to get back into shape. Um, you know,
Yeah.
I notice that if I take a break, I take a couple of weeks off or a month off in my 20s, came back pretty fast. In my 40s, a little more work, right? Yeah, all aspects of it. It's a really physical instrument, so
Yeah.
um, mentally you don't
Yeah.
learn tunes as quickly as you get older and all that. So it's a little bit tough, but I mean, a lot of those people are around still or were up until the end of last season because they're lifers and that's what they do. So
Yeah.
I don't know, but we do have a junior band system. We've been keeping that going. There's been a lot of teaching going on. They've been quite the people who instruct RMM have been pretty creative about how they've tried to keep the kids engaged. I mean, it's pretty much chanters and pads, right? But at least it's something, and they've had pretty good kind of buy-in, I think, from the kids and families. A lot of interest in sticking with it, and it's tougher for beginners, obviously, than people who've been playing for a couple of years. But
Yeah.
yeah, we're all just in survival mode, really, all bands.
Yeah, we've noticed that with the kids. We set up a kids band only recently. We relocated to a local kind of village where I'm from, actually, which is convenient. But we had 9 kids coming down learning chanters and practice pads, and like most of them are going to be gone because they were like had 4 or 5 tunes off and they were progressing well. But when you take 6 months off as a kid and you can't get them back down to play practice chanters, it's quite detrimental to their learning, and they find other stuff, football and sports and that kind of crack. So that'll be pretty much start again from scratch when we get up again with the kids, which is a pity because there was a year and a half's work on into some of those kids, almost to the point where they're could be progressing onto pipes, and then you're starting from scratch with a new group. So that'll be a shame.
Yeah, I was thinking, Chris, I don't know when it was, 4 or 5 years ago when we had Bill Livingston and you had that kind of discussion at Piping Live about pipe band size and, the controversy or topic of maximum sizes of sections and whatnot. Given all this kind of conversation, do you think there's going to be a natural sort of shrinking of the typical size of pipe bands when, let's say we get back at it later in, hopefully in 2021, the season, will we see inevitably smaller bands getting out there?
I actually, since that debate or whatever it was a few years back with Bill and myself, I would say there's probably been a natural shrinkage anyway. I mean, the average size your pipe cores over the last couple of seasons, I think, have been around about the sort of low 20s, 20 and 21, 22, maybe a push and below. So I think there's been a sort of natural downshift in the size anyway. Is this whole situation going to have an effect on the numbers? Perhaps. Yeah. I mean, it might do. There might be, the thing that gets me is there's not a shortage of pipers out there globally. There's plenty of pipers out there, but if people are starting to walk away from it for whatever reason, then you're going to have there's going to be a shrinkage in the size of the bands and things like that. But it's a difficult one to say. I don't really know.
If I could come in there on that one, like this is always an interesting argument or discussion or whatever we want to phrase it, because some people say, oh, bands are too big, or other people say no, blah, and there's quite strong views on either side. My view is kind of in the middle on it, because just because you maybe potentially put a cap on the size of a band doesn't necessarily mean that those players who don't get into the cap, into the size limit, will go elsewhere. Because usually people play in bands for two reasons. Number one, because they enjoy the music that the band plays, and number two, they've got friends in the band. So if you tell them that they can't play in the band because somebody's put a number that you can only have in the core, will those players go somewhere else? Probably not, because they're in the band because they want to be in the band. So just because you say, well, you can't be in my band because I can only have 24 players, that doesn't necessarily mean that those people outside the 24 will replenish the numbers in other bands and make those bands stronger. They'll probably just go away anyway, which is not good for piping in general. And plus, this is a hobby. So should we really be telling people that they can and they can't? However, I do see that there's a potential. But again, as Alan, you said earlier on, the difference, I think, globally and with grade one bands, and particularly, in the lucky position that we're in at the top of grade one, you've got players who want to play in the core. And so there's even through this, I've had, people sending audition tapes, every month or so, still saying, there's a room in the band, and maybe they're looking at it as an opportunity to say, oh, maybe there's players in this core that might be leaving. Now there might be an opportunity. In my case, there's not, because we took in a couple of players coming into the start of what was supposed to be last season, and everybody's still here. And we had a Zoom call the other night, and pretty much everybody was on the call, and whoever wasn't had to excuse themselves in advance to say, look, I'm really sorry, but I can't make it. So I've nobody leaving. So I would expect, if we're going out to play this year, that anybody who's either on the Zoom call or had excused themselves will probably want to get out this season. So I'll still hopefully have a full core.
Alan, Bevan, any thoughts on that? I'm thinking a little bit, maybe we'll see, given those sorts of comments, the need for more teaching, more, if bands across the board are losing sort of players at the end of their career and just deciding they don't want to get back at it because it's, doing that is kind of the agony that Chris talked about too. Will bands react to that with more teaching? Could this actually be a kind of a silver lining maybe when all this is over?
Might be, and I mean, some of those people exiting the kind of compete every week of your summer mode might move on to another phase and get into teaching or mentoring a junior band or something. That's still a lot of work, but less pressure to be at every contest and to do all the travel and stuff. So it's possible. I mean, no one knows. We're just spitballing here, right? We don't know what's going to happen just because people are showing up. The Zoom calls is a lot more, convenient for them to do that and to say, okay, well, I'm not going to stop paragliding or whatever new hobby I came up with. I can get back into pipe bands and strap on 8 or 9 yards of wool material and either sweat in Ontario or get soaked in Scotland.
Glasgow.
Yeah, good points. Now, what about you guys personally? Your biggest challenges, obviously piping and drumming, but, just anyway, this in general, your personal experiences, maybe Alan, Bevan, continue along and, anything that comes to mind that's really, it's the biggest thing that's sort of been your challenge.
Well, I guess selfishly, I've been playing since I was 7 years old, and I haven't had a break. And I've been going overseas every summer since about 1993. It was the first time I didn't go to Scotland for a big chunk of my summer. So I missed that. But on the other hand, it was kind of nice to have the break in some ways and not miss out on anything because everybody had to have the same break. So it did give, I have a family and it gave us opportunities to do things. I haven't been home in August forever. It's like, oh, we could go to a lake or something and, do things we wouldn't normally do. So that was kind of cool. Yeah. And I think when I have picked up the pipes, which has been a few times, it's been because I wanted to, not because I had some looming deadline over me or I had to drag my butt up to band practice to keep the band going or prepare for anything. So it kind of rekindled my love of the music, and I hadn't lost it, but I think there's a little more spark a couple of times over the last few months. So I'm hoping to keep that little spark alive and maybe fan it a bit when the times are better.
Yeah, I like that. It's, you've kind of, I posed it as challenges, but the benefits too. It's for that matter, what are you discovering? Alan, Tully, Any thoughts around that?
Yeah, I probably, if you look at the benefits, the way you did, Alan, I would say the same. I've got 3 young kids, and it's very challenging trying to juggle the pipe major of a band, a full-time job, and actually fitting in time for family. And during the season, I won't say the family are second, but you leave the family every weekend to go to a band competition. They come when they can, and when they can't, you still go to the band competition. And like yourself, this is the first time that I've actually got to experience. And I did say to myself towards the end of last season, I wonder what it's like to have a season at home, and actually or to have the summer at home and just actually spend the summer like any regular person with their family. What's that actually like? Maybe I'd like to experience that sometime. Little did I know it'd be so soon. And also, I don't know whether I'm experiencing a normal summer or whether I experienced, because there wasn't a whole lot to do. But still, as you say, it was nice to get that family time. And as you say again, when I do play, I haven't picked up my pipes very often, but I'm pretty much playing every day, and very little of the band stuff, all new stuff, and I'm just playing tunes because I want to play tunes, and that's been good for me.
Chris, any thoughts along those lines, the benefits that you've discovered, challenges?
More recently, I struggled with lockdown to begin with, personally. Just the whole notion of not being able to go anywhere or do anything just really didn't sit well with me at all. I really did wrestle with that. And then more recently, I've sort of started enjoying my own playing again. I sort of stopped enjoying playing for myself a good few years ago, and I stopped competing solos and things like that, purely because I wasn't enjoying it. It was a chore. And why would you lock yourself in a room for an hour and a half when you don't enjoy it? 6 or 7 days a week. More recently, though, I have been enjoying getting back into the playing and trying to get the hands going again in something that resembles what we are probably going like when I was, getting right in about practicing and stuff like that. So I have noticed a bit of an enjoyment of my own playing again, which is quite a nice thing, actually, considering I was only really playing pipes in the last 4 or 5 years out of necessity to, make sure my hands were in reasonable enough shape to play with the band, to run the band, to do a bit of teaching and things like that. So finding some enjoyment in my own playing again has been a big positive for me, really.
Yeah, good.
Can I just add on to that as well? I haven't spoken to a lot of the guys in the band, and like you guys will be, you'll know full well as a pipe major of a grade 1 band, the intensity and the pressure that's involved on us to keep the band going, and then the follow-on intensity and pressure that we have to put on the guys to perform at that level, and the commitment that's required. And I also noticed with the lads, you would get a sense, when you have to put pressure on them to come to practice, or you're sending the odd text going, where are you? This is two nights in a row that you haven't been at practice. What's going on? And then they come down the next time and they're there just because they don't want to get that text again. And it's funny then when the band season is finished, and there was no season last year, the text that you get from the guys going, Jesus, when can we get going again as a band? Like, I miss not going to band practice. I miss, not being in the same room as my friends that I haven't seen in a year, or, been on the band season. I can't wait to, get back out and play some music again. I think maybe, there's a lot of negative things that COVID will bring for the band season, but maybe if it does make bands smaller, it might make it smaller with the people who actually really want to be there, as opposed to the people who, you have to bully into coming to practice because you're going to drop them if they don't come in the next 2 weeks, type of thing. And that takes a toll on everybody, and maybe we won't have to do that as much.
Interesting. Yeah.
That's a good point. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, really good. Now, why don't we kind of wrap? Want to hear your insight, your advice. you know, that you might give to pipers and drummers around the world? Like it or not, they look to you for insight, and you know, they like to know what the top bands are doing. Alan, Bevan, what would your advice be to pipers and drummers right now?
I think, well, two things that are probably in common to the three of us and how we've approached things with our bands is to take the pressure off because there's no reason to have it. But also that the guys crave that sort of social connection and need it. People are all coming from different places, but I think they all have kind of different needs. But I always notice like it's a bit of a, it's hard to get motivated for like a band Zoom call or Zoom practice if we're playing something. But I always feel good after. I always feel good that I played a tune with everybody, and it just feels right. And you see the faces, and it's weird. It's really weird when you're leading the band and you're getting no oral feedback, right?
Yeah.
Because everyone's got their mic muted, and hopefully they've all got their cameras on so you can at least see them. But there's that delay, and it's very isolating when you're leading a band. We try and spread it around a bit to keep it fun and keep people engaged. So, everybody in the band has led us through some set, and they can pick whatever they want. It can be a couple of marches. It can be one of the concert sets. We've had guys who play harmonies lead the band through, which is pretty fun, trying to make the first fit with the harmonies and stuff. The third part. But just trying to keep it fun and realizing, I think, that people need that kind of engagement. I think is a big factor that pipe majors should be thinking of, and lead drummers.
Mm-hmm. Chris, what about your advice? What would you do?
I think I agree. I mean, although we haven't really been much in the way of social stuff and connecting with the band, I really agree with what Alan's just said there in terms of keeping people engaged and stuff. It's I think one thing I have realised is that the social aspect, I suppose, and it's maybe because I'm coming at it from a position of leadership or whatever, is the social aspect of what we do is more important than I think personally I maybe gave it credit for. So I think keeping people engaged from a social aspect is really quite an important thing to be considering, and it's certainly something that I think I'll be trying to give a bit of consideration to for us going forward, since there's been quite a severe lack of it. I mean, to be fair though, we did organise a night out on the 15th of August, which would have been the Worlds, and we did meet up at where was it? So the out west brewery direction. I can't remember the name of the place now. Anyway, we did meet up and we did have a good time, shall we say. So yeah, I mean, but it was just really great to see all the faces that managed to go along again, and I think I probably realised then that I'd missed them quite a lot,
Good. Alan, Tully, any final thoughts around your advice to bands straight up as they try to work through this?
Yeah, look, as the guys had said earlier on, and Alan, as you said, the pressure piece. What is the point in having pressure when you've nothing to have pressure for? And I think everybody's different, and different bands are different. But I suppose as opposed to giving advice, it's important to really see, what do the guys in the band want to do? What do your guys in the band actually want to do, as opposed to in a position of leadership thinking that this is the right thing to do. Get everybody together and just figure it out. What do we want to do as a group of people? Do we want time off? Do we want to move forward? And then if we do move forward, have some fun with it, because we do this for the love of the music. And I think, as we talked about the last time, Andrew, sometimes the competitive side, and us as leaders of grade one bands will know it only too well, it can take over, and it does take over, because it's all about, you want to win. You go on a competition field, you want to win. And I think, what this has maybe taught a lot of us is that maybe music should come first, and absolutely should come first, and then the competition comes afterwards. So if you're going to do it and you haven't got anything to do it for, well, do it for the music.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's an interesting time for sure, and really appreciate you guys taking the time to share your thoughts right now with the rest of the piping and drumming world. Chris Armstrong, pipe major of ScottishPower, Alan Bevan from Simon Fraser University, and Alan Tully of St. Laurence O'Toole. thanks very much for giving us the time, and all the best. Stay healthy.
Thanks very much.
You too. Thanks, Alen.
Thanks, Andrew. Thank you.